want to climb out from under there? I'm going to show people what you've been doing on this car.
Okay, give me just a sec.
Or should I have gone under there?
No.
Okay.
So we're fixing the next latest rotten car. This one's as bad as Steve's car, if not worse. A lot of people wrote in and said, why are you even bothering?
Steve's car, Dean's.
Or Dean's car, sorry. People are saying, why are you even bothering? And because the customer wants this car done. I know there's better shells out there and there's this and that. I've heard it over and over again. I don't need to hear it again. It's not up to me at the end of the day. It's up to the customer. He's the boss. So this is it. So we're working. So what we're doing is, as you can see, I got the rotisserie hooked up to the front of this car. But unfortunately at the back there was nothing to hook it to, because all the subframes, whatever you want to call it, because this car's unibody, was rotted off. And a prime example is right behind you. Look at the subframe. This is where the leaf spring hooks to. This is how this guy was driving this car. Look at this. The leaf spring comes off of here. Look at this. That's how he's driving it.
It's all kinds of gone.
It's gone. So I mean, what am I going to hook to at the back? I mean, I gotta hook my rotisserie up here somehow. So all I can do right now is try and reestablish the back end again and get it strong again. So it means laying underneath it and that kind of stuff. But you know what? I've done it for years, laying under cars. You don't necessarily need a rotisserie to build a beautiful car. So I started out, if you can see on this side, here's an example. You can see here, the reason this is bubbling up is because this is where the frame would be underneath the car, and it gets packed full of shit, and all of a sudden it starts bubbling up through the floor. So I cut on this side, you can see I've cut the whole floor out and I put a brand new section in. Now originally this car was 18 gauge metal. That's the thickness of the metal on the whole car. So the floor was 18 gauge. I made this one piece here a little thicker. I went with 16 gauge just because I thought, you know what? You're putting that frame piece on there. I want it a little more skookum, a little more heavier duty. So I made this whole floor piece and put this in. Now of course, the key factor, which I keep leaving out here, is before you cut anything off, take tons of measurements, make lots of markings on the car, and I even grab myself a book which is over there, and I even draw it out in a book and I write it down there too, just in case something gets erased off the car. Mainly the measurements are for is because this is where your leaf springs hook up. You don't want to get everything bolted back in and find out that it's angled or twisted or something, right?
Or your dip is too far forward or too far back.
Exactly.
So your wheels won't fit in the wheel wells properly.
Yeah.
We've seen that lots.
So we've got the floor in now. After the floor is in, these things factory are just, you can see kind of here where the spot welds are. What they do is they push this up to the floor and they have holes inside the floor and they spot weld it. Well, I did that inside on a new piece of metal. I spot welded it, but I also went underneath the car and I welded all along this lip because, I don't know, maybe I'm a fan for overkill. I just think in the end of the day, all it is a unibody car and you just got like, you know, what, 24 spot welds, and that's holding that big fucking heavy piece of metal on there. It's supposed to hold the leaf spring in too. So if you come around to this side over here in the wheel well, you can see, let me get that light out of the way. There. You can see after I got the floor in, I put this up in place and held it in place where it had to be. And I spot welded it from inside the trunk pan. But then I went along and I've welded it solid all the way across here. Now these things only come down to here, and you can see they're kind of dipped in, because then what they're meant to do is they're meant to go into the frame here that's supposed to be, of course, on the car, which isn't. He was driving it like this too. Now I've looked around, I don't know unless one of my YouTubers can make a suggestion, but you cannot buy it for a 1976. Maybe the earlier models you can, maybe they're the same, but at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about this section because I have built sections like this tons of times. So I mean, whether I can buy it or I have to build it, it's not a big deal. It just means building it might take a little longer, but whatever. I build it off the bench, I make templates, I build it, it's done in no time. So this section would be next, but I'm not dealing with that right now because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the whole back end solid here. So by spot welding it solid here and putting this new piece of floor in, you can see that is solid. And no, don't worry, I'm shaking the car. I've got like 8 jack stands under it. It ain't gonna fall. So I mean, it's solid. The next thing, there was some rust up in here, which I cut out, and I put new metal in. I had to rebuild the shock tower up in here. They didn't even have it, so you can't really see it, but I rebuilt the shock tower. Now what I'm doing is I'm doing the inner panel that goes across back in here. This is reproduction, you can buy it. I'm putting the inner panel in, and that there ties it to the other side. Now as you can see, I haven't cut the other side out yet, of course. That's my next step. So I'm going to weld this inner panel. I'm going to get to this point, and what we're doing here is if you come across the back, you inner panel welds, here's our little panel down below. I've already welded it all the way across here. You can see, because you can see up in here where I've done the welding, and here's where I've stopped. I haven't done any of this yet because this is still got to be put in place. I'm going to stop in the center and leave it till I get to the other side. So this is there. So this was all rotten in here. So this is solid as a rock. I mean, now we got something for the rotisserie to slide into here with its little arms and attachments, and we'll be able to lift this car up. Then we'll be able to flip it on its side, and we can take care of that other frame situation. We don't need to worry about getting the frame all the way through the car because it's solid now like it is. You can sort of see when I got in here, to get up in here, it was all rusted. And to get up into here, this is your back seat rest, which normally goes in here. I had to cut this out because I can't get in from the trunk area because it's such a small trunk, and to try and lay in there is impossible. So I rebuilt all this, nice and solid. And then we put a new section of floor here. We even went and fancy and put the little ribs, not that we had to. I was just farting around and put the ribs in. To be quite honest, who's ever going to see it when that panel's in there and the trunk's got its mat down?
You just like to use your bead roller.
I like to use a bead roller, yeah. So, excuse me. This is where the rest of the frame's going to come, but like I say, I'm going to address this problem when the car's on the rotisserie. So my goal right now is, all I'm doing is I'm finishing that back panel off to the center, and then I'm going to start cutting this section of the floor out. And I don't think we did show a video with it cut out, but maybe what we'll do is we'll have another video coming up here soon, and I'll show you as I'm cutting all that out of there and getting rid of all that crap. And then basically, we've rebuilt the whole back end of this car. Like, the back end of this car is done then. And people are writing in saying, what a turd, what's this? And I mean, I have not been at this very long, honestly. I just haven't. I don't know how many hours, but I mean, not that many. And I've gotten that done, so it's coming along quite well. So that's what's going on with the Camaro. We're making her strong, and I just love it. I love doing this stuff, man. It makes me happy. I love to fix what people always write in. When someone writes into me and says, oh, why would you fix a piece of shit like that? Look how rotten it is. That can't be fixed. I love to prove people wrong and say, yeah, it can be fixed. But granted, it does cost money. But it is what it is. You're going to have to buy another body anyway. And this guy loves this car, and that's it. So that's where we're at, guys. So I will continue on here, and we'll give you some updates later on, maybe in a couple of days, and we'll show you the other side all cut out. Thanks for subscribing, and remember, it's always a good time and old time, and we will see you next time.